At some point in life, almost everyone learns how to be kind, polite, available, helpful, but very few people learn how to protect themselves. No one truly teaches us how to say no without feeling guilty, how to set boundaries without shame, how to preserve our mental energy without feeling like we're disappointing the world. And so we grow up believing that being a good person means always being available, always saying yes, always adapting, always giving in, always putting ourselves last. Slowly, this belief begins to charge a silent price: emotional exhaustion, mental burnout, constant irritability, a deep sense of emptiness, loss of identity, and that persistent feeling that you're living more to meet expectations than to actually live your own life. Talking about self-care and healthy boundaries is, above all, talking about emotional dignity. It's about learning how to exist without self-erasure. It's about understanding that taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's emotional responsibility. If this kind of content resonates with you, gently support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. That simple action helps this space continue sharing ethical, conscious, and supportive content about mental health, well-being, and quality of life. There is a very distorted idea of self-care that has been promoted for years, as if self-care were just taking a relaxing bath, lighting a candle, listening to calm music, or doing a quick meditation, and suddenly everything is fine. Those things can be part of self-care, yes, but real self-care goes much deeper. Real self-care is often uncomfortable. It's saying no when you want to please. It's disappointing others so you don't abandon yourself. It's holding boundaries even when guilt shows up. It's accepting that not everyone will like your choices. It's understanding that you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. Real self-care is learning to protect your mental energy as something precious, because it truly is. When you say yes to everything, you are, in practice, saying no to yourself, no to your rest, no to your time, no to your limits, no to your emotional health, no to your peace, and eventually, that emotional bill always comes due. Many people feel guilty saying no because they were taught from an early age to tie their personal value to usefulness. The belief that you are only important if you are needed, only loved if you are helpful, only accepted if you are available, only valued if you are always ready to give. This creates an identity built on pleasing, serving, meeting expectations, filling gaps. The problem is that this kind of identity does not support a healthy life. It supports a life of exhaustion. People who don't know how to set boundaries are not more loving. They are more vulnerable to emotional illness. They absorb problems that aren't theirs, carry responsibilities that aren't theirs, and take on emotional weight that doesn't belong to them. Over time, this leads to anxiety, resentment, frustration, chronic fatigue, and often very real physical symptoms because the body responds to emotional overload. Learning to say no without guilt starts with understanding that healthy boundaries don't push away healthy people, they simply expose unhealthy dynamics. When you begin to respect yourself, those who benefited from your lack of boundaries may react negatively, not because you became worse, but because their unlimited access to you ended, and that can feel threatening to people who were used to crossing your limits without consequences. Emotionally mature people can handle hearing no without manipulation, guilt-tripping, victimization, or silent punishment. Unhealthy relationships, on the other hand, often rely on the absence of boundaries to survive. When you start setting limits, those structures begin to collapse. That can be scary, but it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means the dynamic is changing. Saying no doesn't have to be aggressive, cold, or harsh. A healthy boundary is not an attack, not a confrontation, not emotional hardness. It is clarity, calmness, emotional honesty, firmness with respect. You can say no in a kind, empathetic, and grounded way at the same time. The issue isn't the no, it's the guilt that comes afterward. That guilt doesn't come from the boundary itself. It comes from the belief that you must sacrifice yourself to be accepted, that you must exhaust yourself to be loved, that you must disappear to belong. As long as that belief exists, every boundary will feel painful. But when you begin to rebuild your relationship with yourself, you realize something essential. You are not here to burn yourself out for others. You are here to live with emotional dignity. Protecting your mental energy means learning to notice how you feel after certain interactions. Some people leave you feeling lighter, calmer, more grounded. Others leave you feeling drained, tense, confused, anxious, guilty, or overwhelmed. This isn't random, it's emotional exchange. Every relationship involves energy. Every conversation either nourishes or depletes. Every connection builds or erodes. Self-care is learning to notice this without judgment, without guilt, without anger, but with awareness. You don't have to hate anyone to create distance. You don't have to fight to protect yourself. You don't need dramatic confrontations to set boundaries. Sometimes it's enough to reduce access, adjust availability, shift priorities, redefine presence. Not every boundary needs to be spoken. Some are lived. There is a profound difference between being a good person and being a person without boundaries. Kindness without limits becomes self-neglect. Empathy without limits becomes emotional overload. Generosity without limits becomes exploitation. Availability without limits becomes burnout. Love without limits becomes emotional dependency. Caring without limits becomes illness. Boundaries are what make care sustainable. They allow healthy relationships, balanced exchanges, safe bonds, and emotional stability. Without boundaries, everything turns into excess, and excess always leads to harm. As you begin to practice healthy boundaries, something important happens. You start listening to yourself. You stop ignoring fatigue. You stop suppressing irritation. You stop normalizing discomfort. You stop romanticizing exhaustion. You begin to ask yourself, do I really want this? Can I do this right now? Does this make sense for me? Is this costing me more than I can give? This inner listening is the foundation of real self-care. It's not about becoming distant or cold. It's about living consciously, with balance and self-respect. Learning to say no without guilt is a process, not a single moment. You don't wake up one day completely free from guilt. You build it gradually, through practice, awareness, small choices, small boundaries, small adjustments. Every time you respect yourself, the guilt weakens. Every time you prioritize yourself, confidence grows. Every time you protect yourself, self-worth strengthens. Every time you listen inwardly, your identity becomes clearer. Slowly, you stop living out of fear of disappointing others and start living out of respect for yourself. Self-care isn't about closing yourself off from the world. It's about choosing how you show up in it. It's conscious presence, not absence. Healthy connection, not isolation. Balance, not rigidity. It's learning that you can be kind without being available all the time, loving without being invasive, empathetic without self-sacrifice, helpful without self-erasure, caring without becoming ill. When you protect your mental energy, you protect your emotional health. And when you protect your emotional health, you protect your life. Because everything in life passes through the mind, emotions, relationships, and the way you treat yourself. No one can build a healthy life while living in constant self-neglect. Over time, you begin to realize that much of your exhaustion doesn't come from what you do, but from what you tolerate. Not from work itself, but from draining relationships. Not from tasks, but from excessive demands. Not from responsibility, but the inability to say no. Not from routine, but the absence of boundaries. Not from the world, but from how you allow yourself to exist within it. This awareness changes everything because it removes you from the role of a victim of exhaustion and places you in the role of an active participant in your own care. You may not be able to control others' behavior, but you can control their access to you. You may not be able to change the world, but you can change your choices. You may not avoid all conflict, but you can avoid constant self-betrayal.
Protecting your mental energy is not about living on guard, in defense, or in emotional combat. It's about living consciously, knowing what nourishes you, knowing what drains you, knowing how far you can go, knowing when to stop, knowing when to rest, knowing when to step back, knowing when to say yes and when to say no, knowing that your boundary is valid even when no one understands it. Boundaries don't need external validation to exist, they need internal coherence. Many people fear setting boundaries because they believe they'll end up alone. In reality, the opposite usually happens. You lose superficial relationships and gain genuine ones. You lose convenience-based connections and gain respect-based bonds. You lose unbalanced dynamics and gain honest relationships. People who only stay when you say yes to everything are not there for who you are, they're there for what you provide. When you begin to set boundaries, those relationships often dissolve naturally. And yes, that hurts. There is grief, sadness,